A sepia-toned vista of Tombstone, Arizona Territory, 1881. Dust devils swirl across sun-baked streets lined with wooden facades, saloons with swinging doors, a livery stable echoing with the snort of spooked horses. Lingers on a faded sign, OK Corral. Ominous, low strings build tension, punctuated by the distant crack of a whip. Cut to a shadowed figure by a campfire, face weathered like cracked leather, eyes glinting in the firelight. He leans forward, voice gravelly, drawing you in. Gather round this flickering flame, you city folk and wanderers alike. Out here on the edge of nowhere, where the desert wind whispers secrets of the damned, the Old West don't forgive easy. It's October 26, 1881 in Tombstone, a silver-struck boomtown clawing silver from the bones of the earth. The air hangs heavy with the tang of sweat-soaked dust and the faint rot of cattle hides. Folks say fortune built that place, but it was blood that held it together. And on this scorched afternoon, as the sun dipped low like a hangman's noose, 4 men of the badge stepped into a sliver of alleyway, facing down a pack of rustlers with fire in their veins and lead in their holsters. This ain't no tall tale spun in a dime novel. This is the gunfight at the OK Corral, the thunderclap that echoed through the frontier, where law met outlaw in a blaze of vengeance and dust-choked fury. Pull up a rock, stranger. Let me tell you how Wyatt Earp and his brothers stared down hell itself and walked away with ghosts on their shoulders. Tombstone weren't born in glory. No, she was whelped in March of 1877 when Ed Schieffelin struck silver in the hills, ignoring warnings that all he'd find was his own tombstone. By 81, she swelled to 7,000 souls, miners hacking at veins of ore, merchants hawking bolts of calico and sacks of beans, and painted ladies calling from balcony shadows. But beneath that glitter lurked the grit, 110 saloons slinging rot-gut whiskey, 14 gambling dens where cards turned slick with cheaters' sweat, and brothels where the moans mixed with the cries of the forsaken. The town's veins pulsed with silver, but her heart beat to the rhythm of rustled cattle and stagecoach holdups, smuggling booze and guns across the Mexican line where Uncle Sam's taxes bit deep. Into this powder keg rode the Earps, brothers forged in the fires of Illinois farms and Kansas cowtowns. James, the eldest, limped from a rebel mini-ball in the gut during the war between the states, content to tend bar at the Grand Hotel. But it was Virgil, Wyatt, Morgan, and later Warren who carried the weight of the star. Virgil Earp, tall and steady as an oak, pinned on his badge as Deputy U.S. Marshal for Pima County in '79, then snagged the Tombstone Town Marshal's job come June of '81 after the last man quit over sticky fingers in the till. Wyatt, with his cool gray eyes and mustache like a broom bristle, had worn badges from Wichita to Dodge, busting gamblers, breaking heads, always one step ahead of the devil. Morgan, the hot-headed scrapper, backed his kin with fists and Colt. And then there was Doc Holliday, John Henry, they called him, a consumptive dentist turned faro dealer, his lungs rattling like dry beans in a pod, his draw as quick as a rattler's strike. Doc weren't kin by blood, but by the code that bound men tighter than law books ever could. Across the divide prowled the cowboys, a loose gang of hard cases, ranchers by day, thieves by night. Ike and Billy Clanton, brothers with jaws set like granite, ran cattle from their spread near Sulphur Springs, but more often they rustled them from Mexico or army posts. Tom and Frank McClory, mustached and mean from Iowa roots, held the CS Ranch south of town, fencing stolen stock and dodging posses. Billy Claiborne, a wiry kid with a chip on his shoulder big as a branding iron, tagged along like a yapping cur. They called themselves ranchers, but to the Earps they was road agents, highwaymen hitting stages, peddling beef across the border, and thumbing their noses at any badge that got too close. Sheriff Johnny Bayan, a dandy with a politician's smile and a cowboy's leanings, turned a blind eye, pocketing his cut while whispering sweet nothings to the rancher's lobby. The feud didn't spark overnight. No, it smoldered like mesquite coals through the summer of '81. Back in March, the Kinnear stage out of Benson got bushwhacked. Driver Eli Brower shot dead, strongbox rifled for $7,000 in freshly minted 20s. Fingers pointed at Cowboy Bill Leonard and Harry Head, with Jim Crane holding the horses. Wyatt Earp, deputized to hunt him, dangled a $200 reward to Ike Clanton for a tip. Ike bit, then spat it out, fearing the noose for his own sins. Threats flew thicker than flies on a gut-shot steer. "You'll never leave this town alive," Frank McClory growled at Virgil one night in the Oriental Saloon, the air thick with cigar smoke and the clink of poker chips. Come July, another stage tumbled. Passengers robbed blind near Drew's Station. Again, cowboy shadows loomed. Virgil led a posse, kicking dust from Guadalupe Canyon to the San Pedro River, but the trails went cold. By September, the air crackled with reprisals. Frank Stillwell, Behan's old deputy and a cowboy hanger-on, got nabbed for the Kinnear job, spilling names under the lantern light. The cowboys hollered for blood, vowing to fix them Earps good. Wyatt, ever the fox, slipped a shotgun under his coat and patrolled the Birdcage Theater, where the can-can girls kicked high and the faro tables turned fortunes. But it was October 25th that lit the fuse. Ike Clanton, pickled on Taos lightning from a cattle deal gone sour, staggered into the Alhambra Saloon around 1 a.m. There sat Doc Holliday, dealing cards with that tubercular cough hacking like a dry hackamore. Ike, slurring and waving his six-shooter, barked, "You back-shooting dentists? I'll kill you and them Earps too." Doc, pale as a ghost but steady, flipped his pasteboards and drawled, "I reckon you'll find me with a mouthful of lead before that." Virgil burst in, clubbed Ike senseless with his barrel, dragged him before Judge Stillwell for carrying iron in town, against Ordinance No. 9 passed back in April, and slapped him with a $25 fine and a night in the calaboose. Dawn broke bloody. Ike, nursing a split scalp, saddled up and rode for his brother Billy and the McClorys at the West End Corral. By 10, they were back in town, bellies full of bile and bullets. Tom McClory, reins in one hand, a Winchester carbine in the other's scabbard, bellied up to Harry Drum's feedlot. Wyatt, spotting the hardware, pistol whipped him across the chops. "No guns in my town, Tom," and find him another 25. Frank McClory and Billy Clanton rolled in soon after, their horses lathered, peacemakers bulging at their hips. Whispers spread like wildfire through the dusty streets. The Cowboys was gearing for a stampede, aiming to run the Earps out or under. Virgil, coat flapping in the hot gusts, pinned tin stars on Wyatt and Morgan as deputies. "We end this today," he muttered, the weight of his .44 Colt tugging at his belt. Doc, fetched from his room at Fly's boarding house, shouldered a coach gun, double-barreled, sawed short for close work, and grinned that death's head smile. "I'm your huckleberry," he rasped, the words hanging like gunsmoke. They strode down Allen Street, past the Birdcage where a tinny piano plinked Sweet Betsy from Pike, past the Crystal Palace Saloon where Behan nursed a schooner, his eyes darting like a cornered coyote. The marshal's posse turned onto Fremont, boots crunching gravel, the sun hammering their Stetsons like a blacksmith's forge. There, in a 10-foot-wide alley twixt Fly's photo gallery and the Harwood House, a narrow gut of a lot, 6 doors west of the OK Corral's rear, waited the storm. Ike Clanton, Billy Clanton, Tom McClory, Frank McClory, and young Billy Claiborne milled like buzzards on a bone pile, their horses hitched nearby. Wes Fuller lurked in the shadows, but it was the Clantons and McClorys who squared up, hands twitching toward leather. The lot stretched 30 feet east to west, hemmed by high board fences that trapped the heat like a Dutch oven. Dust motes danced in the slant of afternoon light, the air thick with the musk of horse sweat and unwashed wool. Virgil stepped forward, coat open to show the glint of his badge, his voice cutting sharp as a Bowie knife. "Throw up your hands, I intend to disarm you." The words hung there, a heartbeat long. Ike's hands shot skyward, palms pale. "Don't shoot me, Virgil." But Billy Clanton and Frank McClory, eyes hard as agates, clawed for their irons. Tom McClory twisted toward his nag, fingers fumbling for the rifle in the boot. Claiborne yelped and bolted like a jackrabbit, vanishing into the alley's maw. Time splintered. The first shot cracked, a thunderclap that shook the boardwalks. Billy Clanton's .44 barking from the hip, the slug whining past Wyatt's hat brim. Chaos erupted in a storm of muzzle flash and acrid black powder, the stench blooming like hell's own flower. Virgil's revolver bucked, stitching lead into Billy's chest. The kid staggering back against the fence, blood blooming dark on his gallused shirt. Frank McClory wheeled, his Colt spitting flame. Crack, crack. One round plowing into Morgan's shoulder, spinning him like a top. Another grazing Virgil's calf through his boot leather. "God damn you," Morgan roared, firing blind, his bullet creasing Frank's abdomen. Doc Holliday crouched like a wolf, thumbed back the hammers on his nickel-plated Colt. But it was the scattergun that spoke doom. He leveled it at Tom McClory, the double-aught buck hissing out in a roar that shredded the air. Buckshot tore through Tom's armpit, flinging him into the dust, his body twitching like a landed trout. Winchester unfired and mocking. Wyatt, unscathed amid the maelstrom, advanced cool as winter, his bunt-line special, that long-barreled peacemaker, barking deliberate. One slug punched Frank's forehead, dropping him face first into the trough of blood and grit. Billy Clanton, propped against the slats, squeezed off a desperate volley, his wrist shattering under Wyatt's return fire. But it was Virgil's final round that stilled him. Straight through the gut, the boy's eyes glazing over as the light fled. 30 seconds. That's all it took. The echoes rolled down Fremont like a dying man's gasp, fading into the stunned silence of Tombstone. Smoke curled from barrels, powder burns blackening hands and cuffs. 3 bodies sprawled in the alley. Billy Clanton curled fetal. Tom McClory splayed with his life's blood soaking the sand. Frank McClory staring sightless at the sky. Ike Clanton, hands still raised, fled screaming into the streets. Claiborne was long gone. The Earps stood amid the carnage, Virgil limping, Morgan clutching his shoulder, Doc wiping buckshot flecks from his mustache, Wyatt holstering his smoke-wreathed six-shooter without a tremor. Word spread faster than a prairie fire. Sheriff Bean, bursting from the OK Corral with deputies in tow, clapped irons on the lawmen before the brass cooled. "Murder!" Ike Clanton wailed from the shadows, his voice cracking like a boy's. Dr. George Goodfellow, the sawbones with hands steady as a farrier's, knelt in the dust, probing wounds under the gathering crowd. Miners in flour sack shirts, soiled doves peering from windows, news hawks scribbling frantic. No powder burns on the dead, he noted. No sign of hands-up surrender. The Tombstone epitaph hit the presses that night. 3 men hurled into eternity in half a minute. The Nugget, Bean's rag, screamed, "Fiends in human shape." The Spicer hearing dragged through November like a gut-shot mule. Justice Wells Spicer, a paunchy mine owner with a gambler's squint, heard from 30 witnesses in the courthouse. The air stale with spittoons and tension. Ike swore the Earps ambushed unarmed men. Bean backed him, claiming Doc fired first from the hip. But CHS Lombard, peeking from Fly's loft, testified Billy and Frank drew iron first. "It was a fair fight," he said, "or as fair as the frontier allows." Wyatt took the stand, voice level as a rifle sight. "We acted in defense of our lives and the town's peace." On November 30th, Spicer ruled justifiable homicide. No crime committed. The courtroom erupted, cheers from the Oriental's crowd, curses from the cowboy's kin. But peace? That was a fool's dream. Vengeance rode in on a black tide. December 28th, Virgil Earp, ambling from the birdcage with his wife Allie, caught a shotgun blast in the street, both arms shattered, left eye blinded by buckshot. "Cowboys," they whispered, though no one swung. Morgan fell harder. March 18th, 82, in a billiard parlor, a .44 slugged through the spine from ambush shadows. He lingered 3 days, gasping farewells to kin, before the Reaper claimed him. Wyatt and Doc, now fugitives in their own town, hit the trail. Vendetta ride through the rincons, leaving Stillwell gut-shot at the Tucson depot. Curly Bill Brocious blasted to kingdom come in Iron Springs. But the law closed in. Warrants flew like confetti. Doc coughed his last in a Colorado sanatorium, 87. Wyatt drifted to California, dying old and legend-worn in 29. The OK Corral weren't just a shootout in a corral that weren't even a corral. It was the frontier's fever dream laid bare. Lawmen turned avengers, outlaws turned martyrs, all tangled in the thorny wire of ambition and grudge. Wyatt Earp walked away unscathed that day, but the scars ran deep as Arizona canyons. Was it justice or just another blood debt in a land thirsty for it? The West swallowed its answers, leaving us bones and ballads. Tombstone stands yet, a ghost town peddling tickets to the past, but the echoes linger. Who draws first in the dance of lead? If this tale of thunder and treachery gripped your soul, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Saddle up for more from the dusty trail tales, untold reckonings, lost legends, and the raw grit of the frontier. Until next time, keep your powder dry and your eyes on the horizon. Campfire crackles to embers. Title card, Dusty Trail Tales, subscribe for the untold.